and welcome to the third edition of our virtual meetup here in Wellington Ansible Group. Great to have everyone today, and Joseph, Red Hat Technical Manager based in Wellington. And with me today is Mike and Ash. Ash will be joining our meetup team from here on. And hey, Ash, great to have you and welcome on board. Hey, mate, why don't you tell us something about yourself? Just a quick introduction to everyone.
Yes, quickly, sure. Thanks, Joseph. So yeah, Asher Benjamin. So I'm new to the Red Hat team and new to the Ansible meetup team as well, I guess. So I'm one of the SAs, and I am based in Auckland, New Zealand. So basically also part of Mike Kelly's team. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome, mate. At least we now have a representative from Auckland, especially, we still have the travel guidelines, so one can organize something in Auckland once everything goes back to normal.
Hopefully, so absolutely.
Awesome. A few events happening around the Ansible community. Ansible Fest is just around the corner, October. We are excited to connect with everyone virtually this time around. But the best thing about it, I guess, is that it will be free for all. It's going to be immersive. It's a 2-day event, actually 3-day event for those who want to be contributors to Ansible. It's going to be starting on the 13th of October next month. It will, deliver useful customer keynotes. There will be breakout sessions and demos. So make sure you sign up today and get connected to the up-to-date information on the Ansible Fest page that you see on your screen right now. And I know you will ask, this is happening in US time, by the way, but Hakuna Matata, don't worry. On-demand replays will be made available at the end of each general session and breakout session. So in our own time zone, you can definitely view the topics, the videos that you are very much interested in. And we are feeling generous today. We got a few swags to give away at the end of each presentation. So why don't we test your typing skills on the chat box? Simply tell us something that excites you on Ansible Fest, or probably, again, tell us where you're joining from, just to make sure that you're getting your words and your keyboard working on the chat box. Just interact, just test it out. Hopefully you get to win in our simple game later on. So we got some pens, stickers, caps, and notebooks available for everyone to win. So that will make us exciting. Sweet. All right, so just a few meetup notes. This session is being recorded for everyone's reference. If you have questions, just put them on the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. And let's make this interactive, all right? Let's make the most of the chat box on your right and practice your typing skills. So our games will be done over there as well. All right, so on the meetup proper, we are delighted to have and collaborate with him today, Stu Bernstein. So Stu Bernstein is a distinguished technologist from Hewlett Packard Enterprise. He's a technical engineering and solutions architect in HPE Worldwide Product and Engineering Group. Some of his responsibilities for the technical field enablement include HPE Synergy, Composable Infrastructure and Solutions, and vendor partner solution integration. So it's very much used to collaborating with other vendors such as Red Hat. Stu will be talking about how customers use the infrastructure as a code approach. I think you might be familiar with it, but it will be nice to hear how they do it in HPE. And of course, that's going to be with Red Hat Ansible for a complete data center automation. All that sounds really great. He'll share some techniques on how to automate the provisioning of physical infrastructure similar to cloud experience in general by using Ansible Playbooks. And better yet, they have source control to treat infrastructure as code for complete data center automation. That sounds exciting. And of course, we have Mike Calizo, our resident meetup speaker. He's an open source advocate as we know him. And he's going to be showing us some demos on MS SQL on RHEL 8 with Ansible. So with that, I bring you Stu. Hey, Stu. Stu, you there?
I am. Sorry, I was just trying to come off mute. Sorry.
Yes, all right, Mike. Hey, welcome to the Ansible meetup. Over to you now.
Thanks very much. Just sharing my screen. let me know when you can see that.
Yeah, you can see it, Stu.
Excellent. Again, thanks very much. I see a couple of familiar names in our guests, so welcome and hi. Got a reasonable amount of content to get through, and I guess I really want to take this opportunity to fully lobotomize you all. So it's as much about automation and Ansible as it is about how we, position to, make best use of a lot of these API event-driven sets of capabilities. So I'll just basically move through the slides at pace, and I guess a lot of this, certainly the first section, won't be that new to you, so I will move through it, like I say, at pace. The drive for container, for automation, for all these newest styles of techniques and capabilities, of course, is something that we're seeing that's really growing and building in momentum. And really, the reason for that is because, of course, people want that consistent experience. They want to be able to run their workload on-premise, off-premise, and have the mobility capability between both of those. To that end, that certainly makes demands and puts a set of requirements on what we position as a platform, and how you would then automate and then orchestrate that through a series of systems and tools. Obviously, OpenShift Container on top of and in conjunction with Ansible and Tower is this perfect, partner and set of capabilities that we would and certainly do leverage in terms of our platforms. When we talk about these two worlds, obviously we're trying to balance out the operational and the scale and resiliency side of the infrastructure, as well as all the developers and what your application and your go-to-market needs are. And so when we sort of think about that, when we stage and position a platform, we sort of say, well, how do we make this infrastructure, whether it's a rack mount, whether it's something that's more converged or consolidated, how do we expose that such you can consume it with the likes of Ansible and these more interface and API and workflow-driven environments. And so that then, by virtue and nature of that, does give us this nice, complete transparency to operate via a single control plane, if you like, or very shortly, a mindset if we're thinking about how Red Hat's approach is. It gives us that complete transitive capabilities on and off premise, which is really where we want to be. We are fully mindful, of course, of the fact that it's not just about the application. Like I say, we've got to keep watering and feeding it and so forth. So it's about facilities, it's about ops, right? And again, this is where the DevOps comes into it, obviously. But it really is making sure that we aren't, we don't preclude or get in the way of any development or streamlining or efforts or standardization. And so therefore, when we start thinking about how we really want to automate, have the platform functioning at an optimal level, such that it's really conducive to DevOps, to pipelining, to your automation and application agility. We also at the same time need to make sure that when you want to expand, reduce, or publish on this platform, that it really does give you that sort of parity and capability that you would expect and you certainly need. Like I say, it's not always just about, and we're always mindful of this, and even from, of course, way back to the Compact days, we're mindful of the fact that it's operational, it's systems, as well as, we've got to keep the lights going. But it's day 0, day 1, and day 2 lifecycle operations, all right? So it's just as important, but like I say, at the same time, we're really looking to strike that balance to give you the best of both worlds, so really providing with that flexible, fluid, available platform, but at the same time making sure that it's really is available from a developmental as well as a systems and automation standpoint. So our composable infrastructure essentially is a program, it's a strategy. If you go to a number of our sites and resources, you will see this repeated and obviously reinforced into messaging, but be looking to our infrastructure and resources to all of the new and upcoming, and certainly in more recent times, bindings, languages, and automation platforms. it's around consolidation, it's around unification, it's around exposing our infrastructure via a unified interface. And we really do that via our partner ecosystem. Right? And one of our primary and, of course, leading partners, obviously, is Red Hat. There are some interesting statistics. We have and provide the leading platform with number of RHEL instance installations in the globe. We are the leading OpenShift deployment platform in the globe. It's been nearly 20 years we've had a partnership with Red Hat. We have well over 4,500 Linux professionals, Red Hat professionals ourselves. So a really good, strong relationship to leverage and really use the capabilities that we expose with all of these. So in a lot of instances, of course, as you're all probably well aware, people will start dipping their toe into this orchestration, this hybrid, this DevOps world by simply automating. And when you start looking at Ansible, that really is the door opener, because it then becomes a discussion around, oh, do I want to use, do I want to orchestrate and go one step further and start adding in, my Galaxy and my satellite, and then get the whole gambit of OpenShift container platform. So it really does give us this ability to start purely from an automation standpoint and a platform, move forward, and then, of course, as that journey continues, it allows us to, I guess, evolve and build on the platform. Generally, our approach to automation, and this is irrespective of what language or binding or kit you're using, is really exposing the infrastructure, like I say, as a set of pillars and verticals as resources. And so from there, we then just layer on the binding of the automation kits. We position generally a lot of our as standardized how you consume and present those resources as a series of templates. So it allows yourselves to standardize and consume in a systematic, but also unified and a consistent fashion, right? So that basically says, what does the workload need to look like? How many cores, what sort of firmware, what am I connected to, and so forth. And then really from there, is it a change? Is it a configuration? Because really everything we're doing from a perspective of templating and standardizing that access and interfacing with infrastructure means then that once we've done it through the UI, or we've basically architected, brought all our SMEs together in an organization, which might be compute, storage, and network, once we've built these workload profiles and templates, then really it's just consuming them via your playbooks, via your modules. All right. So it gives us the ability to really present any platform, and allows you to abstract away from specifically the hardware itself. So it might be rack mounts, it might be blades, it might be Synergy, it might be some other sort of platform. It gives you that ability to really present that hardware in a standardized fashion, which you can interact with in terms of how you consume and leverage those resources. So in the past, we tended to see a specific number of varying APIs, and really at the end of the day, what we're looking for is to really leverage and get the benefit, really getting the benefit of what Ansible can provide for us in terms of, how do we consume, how do we approach upon different types of resources and definitions and constructs, and saying, in one place, here's my playbook, this is how I want to essentially use it, or position it, or size it, or scale it, or reuse it. And so that gives us a lot of consistency and so forth. In terms of what we position at the very base level of technology sale, at a fundamental level, every element on a compute node essentially has a baseboard management controller. So most of you hopefully would be familiar with the ILO, so the integrated lights out. It's about an 8th or 9th generation lights out technology now, starting way back in the old compact days, obviously. But really what it is, it exposes every subsystem on that platform via an API. So it is secure. It is extensible. Essentially, it is fundamentally it's baked onto the motherboard, right? So it does give you that nice silicon root of trust and all of those other benefits. But fundamentally, it is premised around what we call RIS, so Rich Infrastructure Services. And really what that does is that gives us a facility to stage different sets of capabilities, allows us to define schemas and inventories and so forth in an out-of-band fashion. But at the same time, what it does is the RIS architecture defines the fundamental verbs, right, which we use in our RESTful commands and our RESTful interactions with all of our devices. And the reason I mention this is because at the end of the day, when we start then automating a lot of these functions, in other words, even if we weren't leveraging OneView or some of these other appliance-based unified APIs, we can still interact with each of these nodes via our fundamental RESTful verbs, is all of those as a set of RIS resources on each compute node from the ILO. Right. Every time we update firmware, every time we publish a new OneView or Synergy Composer firmware version, we update essentially the service or the RIS data resource model. And again, the RESTful implementation of that standard is DMTF founded. Okay. When we start thinking about, well, hey, look, as we all know, why did REST come about? When obviously it's been a course of convenience, a course of ease of use, standardization across a number of environments and platforms and automation facilities. But at the end of the day, it allows us to interact with or without payload. It allows us to bind this to specific languages or parsing mechanisms. Okay, and again, it's something that I guess is we would have seen more and more and more and prevalent, pretty much industry wide now in most platforms. Again, most of our systems, in fact, all of them, compute nodes now have an ILO. So we expose this RESTful set of mechanisms and resources. Again, we publish this. You can download it. You can browse it. You can walk the tree, as we call it, to look for some of these URI, these endpoints. And then once you've done that, then of course it's a matter of then either going to Git, or essentially if you have your own playbooks or your own modules, your own definitions, you can then start to exercise those RESTful verbs, right? So doing simple gets, let's finding out, what is going on, what are the parameters and data sets, and then starting to implement some of the changes. Everything we do, in general, we tend to post, and we will post and maintain. And as I was mentioning to the guys earlier on, we are streamlining and just really in the past few months, really looking to accelerate our parity in terms of what we publish, what we keep up to date, and then essentially what we then go back and review and make as relevant and as accurate as we can, given obviously the time and the amount of resources there. But for all intents and purposes, if you go to Git under Hewlett Packard, you will find a wealth of these resources and libraries and modules and so forth. Feedback and commentary from folks to basically say, well, look, hey, this is great. I really want to start building and interacting with some of these RESTful and API, because I want to build some of my own automation workflows or routines. We even have the ability to say, look, if you don't have the hardware, we still give you the ability to go online and actually start to interact with a RESTful API. So if you were to say, look, I want to start to build up an Ansible playbook, I've got my roles defined, I've got all the breakdown in terms of the actual playbook, but I want to test out and look at and see what the response would be from a purely RESTful, a fundamental standpoint. Then you can actually go to the site and actually interact with what looks like hardware but online. So you'll get all the full response. And then really from there, you can up and download the JSON responses and so forth from there. So it's quite a neat little facility if you don't have the hardware, but you certainly want to start to look at exploring, what's going to bubble up into some of these automation workflows and playbooks and so forth. Generally, in terms of Ansible with ILO, there are three ways fundamentally that you can actually interact with an ILO, with a compute node via that outer band, that management, that RESTful interface. We have an ILO REST interface tool, and again, it's free to download. Plenty of really good documentation there. so we can start to essentially leverage that as an ability to automate on top of. There are some additional libraries, but we start to then include some more specific Python modules that also need to be included. There are also available some strict open source Redfish libraries. Again, but that tends to be more specific and more generic to an x86 platform as opposed to a lot of the HPE or ILO functionality. But at the end of the day, we do maintain HPE extensions as well as full ILO Redfish definitions within that resource tree. At a particular node level, one-on-one, that's great. But when we start talking about, oh, you know, hey, look, I need to automate against, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 individual items or nodes or instances, then we really know, of course, as you know, scaling out that level of automation. So, of course, we start thinking about the automation platforms, and obviously, in particular today, looking at Ansible. So, Ansible itself, there again is a lot of information, reference architectures and documents available. These are just some of them. We've had a very recent paper, and I can send the link to the guys to forward out to you, where and it was published and made available just at the end of August, I think it was, which basically was full Ansible automation of open stack on an OpenShift container platform on DL380s. A really good document. While it doesn't talk about complete birth to death of a server, there are some, obviously, in terms of when we start thinking about UPI context, there is a wee bit of prerequisites set up and so forth that's required. But really, once we have that infrastructure, that architecture in place, then of course we can start to automate deployment of bare metal, obviously, as well as some of the container workloads. Physical infrastructure, of course, with Ansible, once we have that precursive environment set up, then really from a point of view of what we can do in terms of provisioning the bare metal, as well as obviously some of the configuration specifics and workload profiles of those hosts, really because of what we're exposing via that RESTful interface, we are connected to every element within inside that platform. And so really what it means is that it's installing I guess the Ansible extensions, it's leveraging the playbooks, it then really is exercising that unified API. All right. And so in terms of the playbook, obviously you're consuming through that, but as I mentioned before, HP OneView or the ILO RESTful interface, that really is the provider. In other words, it's exposing the hardware and all the resources inside of that platform. And of course, we have them for some of our network as well as storage platforms as well. But fundamentally, from a compute standpoint, we are making that interface, that unified set of capabilities, a provider in terms of what resources and, and again, you may want to standardize through templates, what you can consume via the playbook in terms of your automation. When we look at an example of a standard playbook, and again, this one's obviously a little older, but it was one of the more simpler examples I could find. When we start to think about more overarching workflows, then really what we start to think is that, add in some of our more hardware or more some of our unified API capabilities to that same workbook in terms of the role itself. So really what that means is now we're starting to expand that same playbook, which was in the first instance really just looking at maybe some of the application or specific host workloads. And then, of course, by adding in OneView, that allows us then to expand on that role and basically say, what do we want to do inside of our infrastructure as part of a subflow within that overarching playbook. And so by virtue of that alone, it allows us to then to consolidate, federate what was initially just a software or workload-based playbook into one that also includes more and more of infrastructure. If we are predetermining what some of those profile templates look like at a hardware level, then again, we now have this birth to death of a platform that includes our infrastructure, our connectivity in a lot of instances, as well as obviously our ongoing application and workload. As I mentioned, Ansible itself has a native and direct integration API capability with OneView itself. To essentially, the modules are available openly and maintained, and again, a lot more specifically maintained in recent times with versioning. Every time we update HP OneView, so we're currently version 5.4. 5.5 is due out in the next month or so. Again, we will refresh and revisit and ensure consistency with all of our Ansible modules for OneView. Inside, obviously, as you drill more into these Git-based resources, there are a number of ever-expanding modules and Playbook examples for you to leverage. Of course, you can claim and download and leverage and I guess use these to your heart's extent. So at the end of the day, really try. While this is not every scenario, it's not, I would say, 100% exhaustive. It's a pretty good starting point. And again, from one or two of those on the call, they'll be doing, I know from experience, they've been doing a pretty amazing job at taking a lot of these starting points and starting to expand and evolve and really do some really clever things with these modules and playbooks. In a lot of instances, just as we would build up a workload profile or template, some of the best practice and some of the tips and tricks we tend to say to people is that, if you want to understand what something potentially looks like without having to actually walk the tree or discover URI endpoints, you can actually go through via the UI, actually build up what potentially a template or a profile or a function may need to look like. And if that helps you visualize it, and then you can leverage essentially the API call or the module call from there, then that's, I found myself sometimes a good place to start, because in a lot of instances when you're starting to discover and build and get best practice around what a particular workload template needs to look like, you're going to engage with your storage, your compute, and your network guys. And so collectively together, you're going to say, well, this particular host or this particular workload instance needs to look like this, it needs to perform like this, it needs to be attached to this storage, needs to have this network connectivity. So it's, in some ways, it's a lot easier to, I guess, in concert, work together in a graphical format and say, well, here's my template, I've defined it, now I can consume it from an automation standpoint because I've built it together in a singular place with all our SMEs together. And so that certainly we've found in the past in a team, in a conducive environment, has helped us bring together a lot of these groups that were in the past, of course, working under their own mechanism, under their own steam, bring them together to rebuild that best of breed, that consistent workload profile. When you're looking at what is actually available in terms of resources and so forth, there are a number of different options for you to do that. Every time we update the API and references and the RESTful resource capabilities of OneView or the actual appliance itself, and certainly even so inside of Synergy, then you can either and look at the RESTful references, or you can actually browse to the local appliance. And so again, they're all kept in sync. And so what that means is, what do I need to understand? What are the definitions? What are the parameters? In general, most of the parsable data fields and parameters are there. We are working to improve this. And obviously there are always, we tend to find gaps and so forth. But generally these key value pairs and data, in most general instances are there. Some discovery sometimes is required. But essentially, as I say, once you start to build up and I guess develop these templates and so forth, and then the I guess correlation between what is your playbook and what you will discover inside essentially the RESTful API is a one-to-one relationship, and so it does give you that convenience in terms of as you start to then build up your automation playbooks. As we start to think about where do we go next with, so if we're basically leveraging Ansible or Tower to provide us with this baseline automation capabilities, then essentially where do we go from there? Then obviously the next natural choice is, of course, to start to orchestrate, and how do we then start to then provide multi-tenancy and some of these other more mature capabilities on off-premise, and hybrid capabilities. And so OpenShift Container Platform allows us to really apply a lot of these features to, in particular, and again, in this environment, a synergy environment, such that, we really are using those foundational automation capabilities, again, to orchestrate those at a higher level, apply policies, apply governance, and apply some of the business usage models to what we've done at the base level. There are some additional references and capabilities that we make available. As I mentioned, the white paper before, and I can send the link on that, but certainly in terms of mainstream, next level, what's next in the journey after you've started to automate and move to containers, obviously we have some capability there. Last but not least, as I say, please go to and visit our HP Dev portal. There are lots and lots and lots of examples, resources, videos, contacts, white papers available for you to consume and to, leverage as you start to look to build and structure, all of those API consumption-based routines, build them into workflows, automate, and then orchestrate them. So, with that, I thank you for your time, and I will stop sharing.
Hey, thanks very much for that, Stu. That's definitely valuable information for all our Ansibles on the meetup right now. It's really great to hear how you're moving forward with a lot of automation, not just for standard workloads, but even for containers moving forward. I think we have some questions on.
Yes.
Just check that one. Yeah, I think Stu they're very interested on sharing. If you are able to share the slides,
sure.
Or probably some parts of it, especially the white papers.
Yeah, sure. I'll send you the PDF and the links to those by all means.
That's awesome. Much appreciated. Hey, Ash, have you got something for Stu?
Yeah, I've got one question. Just reasons, I guess, why Ansible is so popular is that it's powerful for us. We can, like you said, we can automate networks, compute storage, and so on. Regarding agents, and that's I guess another reason why Ansible is popular is because it's agentless. Do you need any extra modules or agents to basically kind of talk to one view instance to basically automate and deploy infrastructure?
No, not at all. Not at all. In terms of really what we're doing, it is strictly an API consumption model. So, and it is a registered and can be certificate based. Again, some of the security elements. And in fact, one of the calls we've had just recently is talking about how we're starting to, follow suit and fallen behind what Red Hat is advocating in terms of security. But in terms of interaction and how we, start to consume the resources, no, it's purely a RESTful API.
Oh, that's really cool. And it's also very encouraging to see, Stu, that you are sharing some of your codes on your Git repositories. How is your experience so far when it comes to like pull requests or contributions from other communities?
Yeah, no, it's been really good. And to your point, it's an evolving and I guess the momentum is grown. And just in recent times, and again, in recent calls, we've had requests for, if there's an issue, they want to post it on Git. In the past, I think certainly, to be fair and to be honest, we weren't as proactive in terms of addressing some of the raised issues and how they were being posted on Git. But I think with more recent changes in our developer and ops communities internally, we're becoming a lot more proactive in terms of really getting onto those issues that are raised on Git. But yeah, certainly Git as a share and a feedback and as a constructive forum is really growing, and we're finding it certainly very productive.
Oh, that's definitely great to hear. And once again, thank you so much for your time, Stu. Looking forward to collaborating and hearing from you again, probably in the next few meetups. It's a really great presentation. We all love it. Thanks so much, Stu.
Right. Thanks very much. Thank you.
All right, over to some more cool demos as well from Mike Alizo. Over to you, Mike.
I don't know if we can call it demo because I broke my lab last night. So let's see how it goes.
We need help from the demo gods then.
That's right. Let me actually share my screen. Can you guys see my screen now? Can you guys see my screen?
Yep. Can see it, Mike.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, cool. So I'm here to talk about Microsoft's MS SQL on RHEL 8, right? So our agenda, I'll maybe just browse through the slides, because I only have like 20 minutes to go, and I want to do and try the demo later on. So I'll talk about a little bit about the history, the tooling, how you can attain HA on RHEL and MS SQL, and then the Active Directory support. And we'll touch some information about what's missing in Windows and Linux, and then we'll share the resources that is available for public on MS SQL and RHEL. Cool. So history-wise, Microsoft Lab Linux, right? So the partnership started about 3-4 years ago, and Red Hat and Microsoft offer flexible, open, hybrid cloud solution that really helps you to adapt your IT and business operations at pace, in line to what you need. So with these solutions, you can build modern security-focused platform for business, speed application and services development as well, and then deliver consistent and high-quality database experience. That's basically the aim why MS SQL is running on RHEL. Cool. So history-wise, SQL has really only been shipping for Linux in about 2 years, but it has long legacy, of course, on Windows. So despite only being on Linux for 2 years, we have a surprising number of accounts, and governments that had adopted this platform. The big reason for that lies on the way SQL Server was implemented in Linux. SQL already used, abstraction API on Windows. A layer was placed below this API. The SQL platform abstraction layer, SQL PAL, is what I'm trying to discuss here. Taking this approach helped the core SQL engine to behave the same on Linux and Windows, actually. I would say maybe better performance. So basically, we have same tools, just new environment. So with Red Hat and Microsoft, you basically get a trusted global partner. Microsoft and Red Hat has been partnering for a while now. You'll get an integrated solutions as well. So Red Hat and Microsoft provide integrated solutions that simply work to speed and simplify deployment. And that deployment, I'll be touching using Ansible on how you can easily deploy MS SQL 2019 on RHEL 8. You get a collaborative support as well. There is an existing and a very active engineering collaboration wherein Red Hat and engineering and Microsoft engineering team are actually in the same building in Red Hat Tower in North Carolina. And what brings as well into this conversation is this advanced security that MS SQL Server can inherit from the security of Linux, of course. So SQL Server high availability on RHEL. So always on a failover cluster instance, or FCI, is supported and managed through Microsoft Pacemaker. Furthermore, for database level high availability, always on availability groups are supported on RHEL as well, enabling, of course, customer to test the database software's hardiness while running critical workload. So I think that is really actually a good solution for HA. And of course, I'll go into integration with Active Directory. There are two options in integrating into Active Directory. It can either go directly to AD from a Linux server, or indirect via IDM, which is native to, of course, Linux environment. And of course, new for Server 2019 on RHEL. Basically, SQL Server 2019 is an exciting SQL Server release, bringing industry-leading performance and security with intelligence over all your data. I think this is really a good release on MS SQL, and to to enhance the performance of that database, running it on top of RHEL really helps a lot in that perspective. And what's new? So we got new platforms, new edition, and new features on Linux. So I will not touch everything there, but basically the important bit that I am going to mention here is if you're in Azure, RHEL HA is available for you, right? And SQL Server replication and change data capture as well is an important features that we can look at. So the new platform. So in RHEL, especially in RHEL 8, SQL Server experience with RHEL 8 has a lot of improvement in it. So basically, improve the right I/O. You can customize and your SQL tune profile. I'll show that later, and you have a persistent memory direct access as well. And of course, you can also use the native tooling in RHEL by using the cockpit, and you can always use Red Hat Insights as well to monitor the status of your SQL server running on RHEL. Basically, change your security stance from being reactive to proactive, because if you have Red Hat Insights in your operating system, it tells you what vulnerability you are having and what compliance that you need to fix based on your compliance profile that you, of course, created in internally within your company. And again, increase on security. I've touched this. In RHEL, you will inherit a system-wide cryptographic policy. OpenSSL 1.1 and TLS 1.3 is available, and of course, you can have a session recording. This is terminal logging, basically. And the high availability in Azure, you have an improved failover time. SQL Server certification is available now, so full availability groups is fully supported on RHEL 8. Then this is just a Rev 4.3. We're just saying here that it's also supported to run on MS SQL. Is also supported to run on Rev 4.3. And of course, this is the important thing that I want to touch, because I love OpenShift. You can actually deploy and get deploy MS SQL inside OpenShift and get it fully supported both by Microsoft and Red Hat. And there will be an Kubernetes operator coming soon. The target is still 2020, and as you know, operator will make the day 2 light, easy for for managing your MS SQL server running inside of a ship. Cool. So new to Linux, basically the server SQL Server replication and CDC. You get SSMS support that to manage replication from a Windows desktop. It's available cross-platform. You can replicate from SQL Server on Windows Server to SQL Server on Rails Server and vice versa. I think that's awesome. And of course, you can take advantage of the Chains Data Capture or CDC as well. And you can enable distributed transaction as well. So this is advanced for me. I'm not an MS SQL guy, but that's one thing that you can look at as well. I'll skip this slide because that's more of a SAP HANA, but this is more into machine learning as well. So it's built-in machine learning and extensibility. Take advantage of what you can inherit from a real operating systems, really. And so that's what I'm going to talk to. I have 10 minutes to show my demo. So let's try the demo. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to deploy deploy MS SQL on Rails. And I have a repository here that I forked from someone else. And I just basically updated this based on what I need. See, about 3 hours ago, I updated that. So I've created a few playbooks here that I'll be using that you can actually also use later on if you're testing. Cool. So I have here a Rails 8.2 and running on this host name. Cool. Awesome. So what I'm going to do now is I am inside here, this playbook. So I got a rules here that actually I'm going to use to deploy this, what you call this, SQL Server. So what I really am going to do is basically get a packages from Microsoft for this deployment, install MS SQL because I have the repo already created here, and then install the SQL Server client tools. And then I need to add the compatibility libraries that I need. After that, we'll need to set the Python 2, which is currently supported only for Microsoft MS SQL. And then I'll be basically stopping that server that I created because I need to make sure that the setup is correct. And then after that, I'll be setting up firewall rules so that it will allow me to access the server. So the playbook that I'll be calling on this, on that role, is basically I'm going to use that specific rules that I show, and I'll also add another DB, basically that I'll call it MeetUp DB. As you can see, this is the password that I'll be using, and the users that I'll be using to access the database later on is SA. Cool. So let me deploy this. So right now, earlier when I was testing this, I already have accepted the EULA. Really, I also registered it as well, and as you can see, there is already a package that I need for for the repositories. Currently, it's just installing the package. while waiting for that to happen, let me actually this is H. Password. Insights. I want to register the Insight clients as well. I want to register this host to Insights actually. That's what I'm doing, so that I will be able to view the what you call this host in cloud.redhat.com. So cloud.redhat.com is basically a software as a service that Red Hat provides that will allow you to actually register your host and find out what's going on that specific host that that you are registering. So it's not. So currently, I successfully registered my SQL1 home.labs, and it's currently sending or pushing the data to cloud.redhat.com. So if I refresh this, hopefully, I'll see the mssql1.redhat.com in registered. So it just registered right now. So if I go here, basically see what's going on my cluster, what vulnerability it is affecting right now, and if I set up a compliance, say for example I have policies created, I'll be able to see that, what violation I have, and I will see what are the available bug fixes that I have on that specific server. Cool. Let's go back. Oops, what's happening here? Okay. Let me actually do BV here. I need to find out what's going on there. Seems that, okay. I think, okay, sorry. What is that? I think I noticed something here that actually I stopped it. I need to start the SQL Server. I think I didn't add another line at the bottom after doing this what you call this task here. So let me just rerun it again. I think the SQL Server is just not running. That's why I get that error. So let's see what's going on after that. So in my SQL1, because I already have an SQL Server installed, it actually tells me that I have this error or recommendation that I need to do, and we can fix this later on. You know, say for example, tuned ADM profile is not enabled. So that affects the performance, of course. So it's a detected issue, and we can fix that as well. What's this? Started. Wrong. Just type start there. Yeah, of course. So while I'm doing this, if you guys have some questions, you can ask questions. Appreciate that.
Mike, they're more curious on what have you done to make the demo gods really mad.
Yeah, I basically, there you go, Boila. I have a cluster. I think I need to basically offer a whole pig so that I can I appease the demo god. So I have an SQL running now. Let's see what's the version that is running. So I have SQL 2019 running here. Let's see if that database is actually created. So let's list the database. And if I do go, I can actually see the MeetUp DB that we created. Cool. So now that I have the what do you call this, the MySQL running, and the insights actually tells me that I have something here that I need to fix. So let's actually fix that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, of course, use Ansible again to fix that. So what I do is just install tune profiles MySQL. Now that it's installed, and of course I can always write a playbook about this, right? So, but for the sake of the demo, I don't need to. I won't do that. And then I'll enable the profile. So if I list this, I generally be in list. Is it? It's the command. Yeah. So I have SQL enabled here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run Insights clients as well again, so that I will be refreshing, pushing again the information that has updated in my host here, in MySQL, MS SQL 1. I call it MySQL. And once that is done, and if I refresh this, hopefully that issue that we get from the advisor of Insights will be fixed already. So it says here that the data is uploaded, and is it? Yeah. So that specific issue is now gone. So basically, you can do this every time you are having, you are managing a what do you call this, an SQL server. Insights looking at your MS SQL server running on RHEL is going to be helpful, because it actually gives you this kind of advisor. Thank you. That's the demo, and basically my presentation is done.
Thank you so much, Michael. And yeah, that's really awesome demo from you. We got it working at the end, so it's all good.
Exactly.
Sweet. So now, let me just share my screen.
Yeah.
It's time for the Red Hat Swags giveaway. So, all right, this will be easy. Just the first person to type in the correct answer wins the swag. If you're in Auckland, I'm going to be arranging for the shipment. If you're in Wellington, you can meet me around the CBD anytime. I can also ship it to you for contactless shipment. Sweet. So my first question is, are you guys ready? My first question. When is Ansible Fest happening? When is Ansible Fest happening? First one to provide the answer. When is Ansible Fest happening? The start date. All right, I think we got a winner. That's Alex. You're right, October 13 to 14. All right, we got one winner. Alex, if you can send me a private message via the meetup.com, that would be great. Otherwise, you can stay on the call and I'll get your details for that. All right, Michael, do you have one more question for another set of swags?
No, actually, I don't have. I'm busy writing a reply to Alex here.
All right. Ash, they have one more question because we have one more set of the swags.
Actually,
yeah.
Actually, if you guys are in Wellington, last year's Ansible Fest T-shirt, I still have it under my desk. Sizes are XL and triple XL. If you guys want that, you reach out to me, Joseph, or Ash. And whenever we are in the town, we can meet up for a coffee and we'll get you that T-shirt.
All right, I have one more question then. So at the moment, earlier on, Mike demoed Microsoft SQL on RHEL 8. My question is, what's the latest major version of RHEL 8? RHEL 8 dot blank. What's the latest RHEL version? RHEL 8 version, RHEL 8 dot blank.
I actually showed that in my, on my demo.
All right, we got a winner, I think. That's Jensen. You're right. It's definitely RHEL 8.2, and RHEL 8.3 will be released, I think, in a few months' time. So make sure you watch out for that. All right, Jensen and Alex, if you can please stay on the call, I will get your contact details and arrange your swags. And for everyone, thanks for joining. Thanks, Stu. Thanks, Michael. And it will be nice to see you again on the next Ansible meetup. There are other meetups happening, OpenShift and among others. So make sure you keep in touch. Just watch over the meetup.com page, and see you again next month. Have a good day and have a good week, everyone. See ya.
Thanks.
Guys, thank you.
So we